Hi everyone, I'm the Plant Propagator and welcome to my channel. Today it's a beautiful orchid day here in Southwest Florida. It is mid-June, 90 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 32 degrees Celsius. We are in a heat advisory right now. It is 104 degrees with the heat index, the humidity included, 104 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 40 degrees Celsius. So it is a nice day for growing orchids here in Southwest Florida. If you wanted to tune in and see about my encyclia crosses, well, I put that off just a little bit because I've got something else that I wanted to share with you. That's coming. I've actually started making some encyclia crosses, and there's some interesting stories, interesting things that I want to share with you on that, but maybe next one or the one after. But I attended the June meeting of the Gulf Coast Orchid Alliance here in Southwest Florida, and what I want to do is share with you some of the things that happened at that meeting. The first thing that I wanted to share with you that was exciting is that I met Natasha from Just One More Orchid. I've met her previously. We re-met, and I just wanted to reach out there and say, hey Natasha, if you're watching, she has a business where she sells really nice pottery that's specifically designed for orchids, and it's orchid format, and it's great stuff. So she has a business, but she also has a YouTube channel that is fairly successful. And she said she reached out to me, and it may have been why my subscriber level went up a lot this past week. But it may just have been people watching. Whatever it was, thank you to everyone for subscribing. But I wanted to reach out to her as well, and I spent some time with her sitting at her table, and her daughter Martha, who was just really talkative, just a great kid, and Martha is featured in Natasha's videos. So first thing is I wanted to reach back out to you guys and say it was good talking to you, and thanks, and hopefully you're doing good. The other thing that I wanted to do, the second thing, and a few things I wanted to share with you about the meeting last night, is there was a presentation from Tomasz Bajzer, and he is from Tarzan Group, and he has a company on the east coast of Florida, and his area of expertise and interest in his business are with miniatures and small and micro orchids. And it's one of those things that when I first heard about it, it's like, oh my gosh, okay. And because what happens is when the minis and micros are mentioned, about half of the people in the room go, oh, cute. And the other half, which I would be a part of, says, oh gosh, okay. We're going to talk about orchids that are smaller, whole orchid plants that are way smaller than some of the smallest flowers that I have around. But at the end of the presentation, Tomasz, just so anyone knows, he gives an incredible, it's probably the best presentation within this group that I've been to. He does an incredible job, and he's entertaining, it's educational. You know, he's a great person to have present. And what he talked about again is the minis and micros, where these are small orchids that mostly, he says, they're grown indoors rather than outdoors, but it depends on your area. They're grown in these small terrarium types or large terrarium type setups. They're really easy to care for. The problem with them is that they're small. I like seeing big flowers and making crosses, and I don't think I can do that. I could do it under a scope, I think, but I'm sure I can't do it just with the naked eye. But still, just he won me over. It was a really enjoyable presentation, and again, the best talk that I think I've been to in a long time. And the other thing with micros and minis, if you're interested, contact him, and you can purchase them from him. But the other thing is, he knows a lot. He's willing to give out free advice, of course, and there's a lot of subtleties about, just similar to what we have with the regular sized orchids, a lot of subtleties about growing the minis and micros, which I think he can share with you, and that he shared as part of his presentation. And it was very educational. It was very entertaining. Anyway, Thomas, if you're watching, great job. Again, I talked with him after his talk last night, and it was also enjoyable. Just a great guy and great presentation. The last two things that I want to talk about are these two guys, and I brought these in to our monthly meeting. And when you bring orchids into the monthly meeting, they're judged. It's not an American Orchid Society judging, but they're judged by the membership as far as how the flowers look and how the plant presents and things like that. And what I wanted to talk with you about is first this one and then this one. This was the no ID orchid, where I didn't know what it is, and I did have a label, but there was no orchid by that name or anything close. But with some work that I did, and with some feedback from members of the society, this is now known. I know what this thing is, and it's exciting, and I want to share with you that discovery. But let's talk about this guy first. Oh, and both of these got, so the blue ribbon it's the first place, and this is just a popular vote for pretty flower in the category. So this is large Cattleya, and this is small cat. And small cat means less than 4 inches, where the flower size is less than 4 inches. I thought this was bigger, but you take the template up to it, and it was smaller. So this is in the small Cattleya category. So this is Maui plum, and I've shared this plant with you in the past. So it won the first place for just the regular voting and the small Cattleya from the membership voting, and then it won this special commendation award because of the flower. And I knew the flower was nice, and the other thing that I can, with the wind blowing here in Southwest Florida, I can smell both of these. The wind is blowing this direction, so I'm downwind from these orchids, and I can smell this and I can smell this. But the thing that I wanted to share with you is this is a great flower. It really is nice. It presents itself well. All the flowers opened at the same time. It's a big plant. It's a big spike. The flowers all look good. But the thing about this flower, I brought this plant in. So I brought a few plants in, and I set them at my table, and then I went out to get my other plants. And this is the first one that I brought in. And by the time I'd come back in, there was a few people standing around this plant looking at it. So it's like, and I walked in and they said, "Is this your plant?" And yeah, it was mine. And I don't know if it's good or bad, if they're going to tell me it has a disease and I need to exit the premises with the plant. But they really liked it. And the thing is that's interesting about this is that for one of our previous meetings for my local orchid breeding group that is part of the Gulf Coast Orchid Alliance. So this is BOING, Breeding Orchids by Intelligent but Naive Growers. We had a presenter who explained polyploidy, how to, what are aspects of polyploidy, so that, that is 2N versus 4N, the number of the copies of chromosomes that are in each cell of these plants. And just so you know, most organisms are 2N. They've got 1N from one parent, 1N from another parent. Some plants you can diploidize, double the amount of chromosomes, and then they become 4N. So it is, rather than a standard 2N, it becomes 4N, double the amount. And what happens in these plants, it can be good or bad. It slows the plants down, but what it does is it gives big, not large as much, but waxy, real tolerant flowers. And so that's what drew people into this plant. Now this plant on the label, it's got one of the parents is listed as a 4N, but the other parent isn't listed, and I contacted the breeder, who was Fred Clark, and I asked him if this is a tetraploid or a triploid. I don't want to get into that, but he said that I can tell that by selfing the plant. I don't want to get into too much detail, but from the general growth habit of this plant, I've had this plant for over 3 years as a seedling, and this is my first bloom. It's a big plant, but because of how thick and waxy the petals are, and they're standing up really well in this heat, whereas this plant, the petals are starting to fade a little bit, it really does suggest that this is a tetraploid or 4N plant, which is in many cases desirable. They are slower growing. They're more difficult to grow, I think, a little bit, just because they are slower growing, but the flowers tend to be thicker and waxier, and they last a little bit longer, and that's really the attraction of this plant. So just from the growth habit of the plant and from the waxiness of the petals, it looks like this is a tetraploid or 4N plant, and it's going to have really long-lasting flowers, and I'm excited about that. The crowd, when they were around this plant, they were collected around it, and along with the members of the breeding group, and one of the members says, "Hey, can I feel your flower?" And I thought that was a personal question, but I said, "Sure, go ahead." So then he started, and this guy starts, doing this to the flower, and then it's like, uh-oh, I couldn't tell how hard he's feeling it. And then other people saw what he was doing, and they came around, and then everyone starts feeling the flower on this plant, and it wasn't damaged, but I was like, wait, stop. But anyway, and again, that's kind of an indicator. Because it looks so thick and waxy, they wanted to feel the flower on this Cattleya. Again, this is a Cattleya Maui plum, and so again, because it just started blooming a week ago, and the flowers have held up so well, I believe that it is a tetraploid, and it got a commendation for flower quality. It was also suggested to me to go to take this thing for formal judging at an American Orchid Society show, that was on the East Coast in Florida, and I didn't want to make the drive. So it's here with me. Maybe next time we'll see if the next bulb, if the next cane gets bigger than this, and this is fairly large. I didn't even clean up the plant. It still has rain residue and maybe fungicide residue on the plant, so I just brought it in. The other one that the thing that I'm also pretty excited about is this guy. Now this guy won, and this was in the large Cattleya category, and this won first prize, but for some reason there weren't that many large Cattleyas, so it is a nice flower. Nicely fragrant, but it's starting to fade a little bit. It's been open not much longer than this, maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks at the most. But the tag on this that is my writing here, and I've shared this with you before. This says BLC Charles Super Gold, and I had a video. My previous video was help me identify this plant, and I did get some comments, and no one was able to help me, which is fine. They wish they could, and I appreciate that. But I started I've spent time trying to find out what this orchid is, and I couldn't find it. So I spent time just a couple of nights ago, the day before the meeting, and I was looking this up. Charles Super Gold. I looked it up in the orchid sites. I just Googled the general name. I did a few things, and what I did is I came up close. If you go down the list of hits on Google, and I'll show this to you. If you go down the list of hits, if you just do Charles Super Gold, you find some things that are labeled, that are in the orchids, that are labeled Super Gold. So it's like, okay. So I went down, it was pretty deep down, and I went and I looked at some that had been given the cultivar name Super Gold. And what happened is it comes back and it refers to an orchid called Chia Lin Super Gold. And I'm looking at Chia Lin and how similar that could be to what I wrote down on this tag, which is Charles. So, and it's just the American guy reading the, I don't know, I think it's a Chinese name, and so Chia Lin became, with my writing, apparently Charles. Now the other thing about it is, so I was thinking, okay, that might be what happened, and then I looked up Super Gold, and then when I looked up Chia Lin on most of the other sites, they had Chia Lin was listed, but the awarded name, the cultivar name, was not Super Gold, but it was Golden Super. So this was kind of like a double mistake thing, and that may have been why I had such a hard time finding it. I looked up the pictures of Chia Lin Golden Super, and they look exactly like this guy. So too much of a coincidence. All right. The final thing that, but still, I was pretty convinced, but I wasn't 100% convinced. So I brought this to the meeting last night, and I sat it down on the no ID table. So we have separate, judging for different orchids in the class, and then there's another class where we lost the tags or the label was mislabeled, and we don't know what the plan is, and that's the NOID table. And I brought it in, I sat it down, and I talked to the president of the society, and I said, do you know what this is? And he kind of looks at it, and he looks at me, and he looks at it again, goes over to it, takes a closer look, and he says, looks like Chia Lin. So out of the top of his head, didn't look at the tag, didn't look at anything, at the top of his head, he said, looks like Chia Lin. And then I explained the story, and it was a no ID, and I didn't know what it was, and it might be that, and it's labeled as Super Gold. And then he looks it up, and he finds, again, on his iPad, he looked it up, and he found Chia Lin Golden Super, and he pulls up the picture, and he goes, that's it, that's got to be it. So I'm really excited that, for me, it kind of confirms the identity of this plant. It was multiple mistakes that led to this mislabeling, and it doesn't take much to have things backwards and misspelled, but it's too much of a coincidence that this is, instead of Charles Super Gold, it's Chia Lin Golden Super, and the flower looks exactly the same. And I'll put these things side by side so you can see what they look like. So I'm pretty excited. That means I can use this in my breeding program. It's a nice plant. I got 3 flowers that I can work with. The fragrance on them is just wonderful. It does fade a little fast, but that's okay. I got to get it into a better potting mix. It's at the edge of the pot, not doing well, but it seems to be okay. All right, so that's all I have for today. I think I went on a little bit long, but I just had so many things that I wanted to share with you today. The meeting yesterday with my local orchid society was just wonderful, and they always are. So if you have a local orchid society and you're interested in orchids, go talk to fellow orchid lovers. It's really for me, it's been a great experience, and I strongly recommend it. So that's all I have for today. I'll get to new blooms and encyclia, hybridizations, crosses, and other things as we move forward. Lab stuff, I was in the lab yesterday. I should have done a lab update, but I didn't. I just had too much to do. Didn't get around to it. So lots of things that I wanted to share that I still need and want to share with you. All right, that's all I have for today. I hope you liked my video. If you liked my video and you want to keep on seeing them, it would help me out if you can click on like, share, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already a subscriber. Okay, well, I'm the plant propagator, and once again, Natasha, if you watched all the way to the end, thanks for watching. For everyone else, again, thanks for watching, and happy propagating.